Good afternoon, everyone. Happy week after 4th of July. This is Ready Row USA. I'm Charlotte Pierce, your producer. We're a podcast of the Rowing Chat Network. I'd like to welcome our guest expert, Padriac McGovern, who is with the George Pocock Rowing Foundation. Hi, say hello. And I will share he's the director of rowing programs. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. And we have some rowers from across the country. Charlotte Kopp from Station L in Portland. Hi, Charlotte. Katie Eberling is with, tell me again.
Kitsap Rowing Association out of Poulsbo, Washington.
Poulsbo, another West Coaster, best coaster. And Dean, where are you again?
Yeah, I'm from St. Louis Rowing Club.
St. Louis Rowing Club. Great. And Sasha, you're in New Jersey, did you say? Sorry, you're muted. Go ahead. Sasha, where are you from?
I'm with Swan Creek Rowing Club. We're actually officially in New Jersey, but we row on the border of Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, but something Creek Rowing Club. Swan Creek?
Swan Creek, yeah.
I think you wrote in a few months ago about some stuff that was going on at your club. I remember that in our club news forum. I think somebody, maybe not you, but anyway, we'll go on. Yeah. The Rowing Chat Network has several other podcasts. So those of you who are listening, we generally go live via video, but we strip out the audio and go to all the major podcast platforms. We have Faster Masters, Strength Roundtable, the Rowing Chat interviews that our executive producer, Rebecca Caro, produces. In Faster Masters, she does with Marlene Royal, who's a renowned coach. And then the newest one is The Candid Cox with Whitney Powell. And it's primarily about coxing, which is a challenging part of our sport right now. So I'm Charlotte Pierce. I'm the producer. This is our 79th episode. And Kymberly Reynolds of Recovery on Water is our assistant producer. She has put together the news segment, and she will not be joining us until next week. She works for the City of Chicago Fire Department and is heavily involved in the various crises going on. We have a new program at Rowing Chat called Help Rowing Retailers Recover. It's in development. But if you have a rowing retailer that you want us to feature on our website, you can send in your nomination to rowing.chat/contact. That's the form that you can use. And we would like to help rowing retailers in any way we can and promote their products, because it's really hard right now. In the news, we have, clubs are making the most of technology, and anyone who wants to chime in on the news, Kymberly won't be here. So if you have comments on any of these, my rowing club, Community Rowing, has in April and May developed an incredible virtual program, book club, yoga, circuit training. It's all, depends on what you have at home, but they loaned out ergs to members. So does anybody else have a good technology story from your club?
Yeah, I'll go. Station L was able to give out I think about 13 ergs to a bunch of people for 3 weeks at a time, and then they switched to
Mhm.
another group. So everyone was able to get ergs. But now since we're out on singles, no one really wants to erg.
Do you have enough singles for everyone?
Yes, we do. We have a huge spreadsheet logistics board. So, but I can get into that more later.
Cool. Yeah.
Once we talk about singles.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Chicago Sprints. I think Patrick, do you know anything about this? Is it going to be virtual or live in August? Do you think? You know.
Which event is that?
The Chicago Sprints. I'm sorry, I need to share the screen, but hold on a second. Yeah, Kymberly said that there were going to be the August 14th to the 16th at the Lincoln Park Boat Club.
I'd be very surprised if there was more than singles. I
think that's what she said. It was going to be just singles. Yeah. Okay. But that's something. That's something live. Anyway, then we all know that Stanford cut 11 varsity sports. Is that permanent?
Yes, the decision was final.
All men's rowing?
That's correct. Yeah,
Wow.
I think the understanding is that there's a possibility for them to return as a club sport, but there's not an option for the alumni or for a booster club to fund the program through the athletic department. So men's rowing, lightweight rowing have both been cut.
That's
from the
huge. That's just a huge blow, but I don't know, maybe sometime in the future they can come back.
Well, as a former Pac-12 athlete, I was reading in some of the rationale is that men's rowing and lightweight women, they compete at ARA, not NCAA level. And there's also no other lightweight women's programs on the West Coast, which was part of the reasoning canceling that.
Wow. Yeah. Big blow. Kymberly was saying North Park College in Chicago cut their women's program. And then the Ivy League announcement yesterday, that includes rowing as well, I believe. They're not having any sports this year. Let's go on to Patrick and talk about some of the concrete, practical suggestions. And you're in the middle of actually opening some clubs. Is that correct?
We are. Yeah, we have, in my role at the George Pocock Rowing Foundation, we have 2 boathouses, and one in the city of Renton and one in the city of Seattle. On that level, they are both in 2 separate stages of reopening. The facility in Renton, or the city of Renton, had a more strict policy than the city of Seattle. So they are a few weeks behind in reopening their full operation. But they're gradually moving into rowing in singles and having small teams of singles out on the water. So.
And is there a lot of demand? Are people showing up in droves?
There is a lot of demand, in both programs. I think, both the program in Seattle at the Pocock Rowing Center is functioning at, I would say, about 35% capacity. There's about 400 athletes that are trying to get into 30 singles at the Pocock Rowing Center.
Yeah.
The ratio of athletes to singles at the Renton Rowing Center is much more favorable to permit rowing. There's about 30 youth and 20 adults that are trying to get into 15 singles. So,
And do you have a good system for communication? I noticed one of your talking points was the formal and informal communication, and is that working well? Or
it is. Yeah, we have internally. We have weekly communication that is obviously very transparent, very clear. It's backed up by information on our website. And then we also have our coaches, our team captains, and essentially our management committee, which is sort of a membrane between staff and athletes. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we're on the right talking points and moving forward together. And everything seems to have been working quite well. You imagine there's a few blips someone reserves a boat they shouldn't, or someone reserves a boat for AM instead of PM. Someone doesn't want to wear a mask, but in general, I think we're meeting as many of the needs of the people as we can, and they're all real grateful. I think in particular, the youth families, the youth parents are incredibly grateful of our efforts our concerted efforts on scheduling these things, just looking for something for the kids to do. Obviously, the adults rowing is a big important part of their lives as well. So, people have been grateful for what we've been able to offer so far.
Is this putting an enormous strain on finances at the clubs that you've heard about?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of mentioned some of these formal and informal networks. In our role in Puget Sound, we do have a number of partner boathouses that we work with on various projects and efforts to spread the word of rowing, to get rowing into different communities, and to support new rowing programs. And everyone is suffering. I think the things that we've known, obviously, program revenue is down, right? Which, of course, is the financial model of many of these clubs, right? It relies on a high volume of participants. And so when we have a low volume of participants, the cost associated with keeping the doors open obviously puts an incredible strain there. Yeah,
I know we had a big community rowing in Boston. We had a big appeal, and like master scullers, we had a Zoom conference, and we were asked to pay our facilities fee, and then anything we could do in terms of paying for what we would normally use in that season, in terms of coaching. So, I think they got pretty good participation and are able to stagger along, but it's certainly not, it's kind of challenging to run a club in the best of times.
Yeah, I would just add for St. Louis, we've looked at our finances out for a number of years, and this year we're kind of okay. We had some reserves, and we had some discretionary spending in terms of boats, et cetera, that we could postpone. Doesn't do a lot for the rowing community, like producing boats and equipment and such. Next year is when the financial hit is probably really going to be the strongest for us. It's just a lot of uncertainty associated with renewed memberships. Obviously, a lot of the cost of operation is consistent, whether you have people rowing or not, and the revenue is very dependent on our Learn to Row classes, which we have not been able to have a regular participation in. Interested what our junior rowing will be as well. So next year is going to really be tough.
Any further thoughts from the rest of Charlotte or Katie or?
Yeah, well, this week was our first week of doing Learn to Row, and we have totally changed from, because we would just do Learn to Row with sweep rowing, but now we're putting people out in Edens with the pontoon, so everyone's learning how to row in a single. And now every coach has, instead of having 8 to 10 students, now they only have 4 or 5. So that's been quite the change. But definitely, and now we have a huge wait list because we don't have many spaces available. So
we used to do Learn to Row in barges,
us too.
16 people or something like that. But but we have that Paralympic rowing training center, so we have like tons of the pontoons and things, and they said they would. I think they've been trying to do a Learn to Row with those as well. Yeah. Patrick, what's the common risk assessment that you mentioned?
Yeah. So I think is helpful to understand sort of the network of programs in the Northwest and in the Seattle area, Puget Sound region. There's a lot of clubs of similar size reach out to one another and speak with one another, and I think keeping each other apprised of what's moving forward. And I think, the networks, the conversations I've been privy to, I think everyone shares a common view that team boat rowing at this point in time is incredibly risky, and the administrators and really the administrators and boards have kind of shifted their thought from, hey, we're excited about getting into team boat rowing. When can we do this? And I think they're more looking at it and seeing the risks involved with, just seeing the risks involved. I think everyone has and again, that's to say,
when you say
common.
Rowing is mid to high risk, does that mean sweeps rowing or you?
Team boat rowing? Yeah, team boat rowing.
Yeah.
And just the nature of the close contact, the amount of time that we spend, and how we're breathing people's air. I mean, it's a matter of time. I think that is becoming a more common viewpoint on team boat rowing in the Puget Sound area. There's a variety of impacts on all of our operations. So we see, potentially clubs that could not operate unless there are team boat rowing, right? They're almost forced to have a different risk assessment there.
Yeah.
So there's a few outliers in the Puget Sound area, but I think for the most part, everyone is, no one is. There are a few groups, I would say, that are pushing very actively, pushing hard to be in team boats right now. I think.
Are there any like bubbles forming? Is anybody's club having a team just kind of, or have you heard about that, living together or just doing lots of testing or something?
We're very close, maybe a few days away from some signups for team boats. The people that I've talked to are probably not comfortable with it yet, though. I think maybe some of the juniors would be. If you look at their susceptibility to COVID and so on, they're obviously a lot more durable than a lot of masters. So, and we have a pretty large number of juniors. So I imagine we'll put out a boat or two at a time with the juniors. But in terms of the masters, I don't think there's enough interest yet to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, did someone want to add to that? We have it. And Patrick, when you say proactive versus reactive in terms of the way to look at the future, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have found ourselves, right, we think that as a hallmark, right, in optimum times, we're planning for things that are right at the director level. We're planning for things that are 6 to 12 months out. And in the COVID situation, we found ourselves thinking about things in, the weekly basis, sometimes even the daily basis. So at this point, shifting my thinking in particular to, rather than waiting for a directive from the governor, or rather than waiting for when someone else can tell us we can be in team boats, or waiting for something to happen that then will trigger action on our part, we're changing that narrative around largely for efficiency, for institutional confidence, I think. And so at this point, rather than, and again, we need to plan things. We need to set up programming for the fall. We need to, I've been relying on the good grace of some members to pay dues without receiving services.
Exactly.
We had to shorten and somewhat expensive youth rowing season by a considerable amount. So at this point, making the determination ahead of time and turning that narrative around and being proactive about it and saying, for the next 6 months, we will not be in team boats. For the next 6 months, we will not be in the indoor rowing center. The winter training will not take place indoors. Again, we have a variety of athletes that are in a higher risk group, a variety of risk tolerance among their parents and among the adult athletes. So again, looking to provide programming that we can reliably deliver rather than promote a program in an ideal fashion that we would later modify. So again, we're changing the narrative around in order to retain an element of consumer confidence from our members, and also the ability to deliver what we say we can deliver. So how we got here on that realm of thought.
Yeah, and as far as what clubs can do, just practical stuff. You've got some action points that you had listed for us. Can you want to go through those?
I was just going to add. I'm in a small club.
Sorry, go ahead. Katie, is that you? I guess we if you want to put it in the chat, I can relate it to people. I don't think we're getting your audio. Go ahead, Patrick. Go ahead with your.
At this point in time, I think everyone is comfortable with sort of the sanitation processes and procedures there. I think some of the new boundaries I think that we're embracing and encouraging people to embrace are longstanding norms about private equipment and what that means. I think we're certainly understanding the efficiency of having singles that are rowed by one person for 75 minutes a day. So yeah, we're working at encouraging our private boat owners, of which there are 120 of them at the Pocock Rowing Center, to either share, donate, or otherwise loan their equipment to youth athletes in particular. Again, with the idea of allowing people access to the waters.
Is that kind of foreign to some of the same personal boat owners to do that?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, it's just at least in the Seattle area, it seems like it's a very, the idea that someone would row your boat is a very, very personal ask of people. And I think like a norm in rowing. It's certainly good time to change, perhaps. So
and well, at least the 8s are not going to get a lot of wear and tear, and the Cox boxes will be in nice shape for next year. As far as why do you say a smaller boathouse is better equipped to survive? Just the physical plant that they're dealing with, and
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So looking at the 2 boathouses that I take care of, the Renton Rowing Center has a much smaller administrative staff. So we have a very high reliance on volunteers to plan team activities. They actually handle some of the infrastructure repairs at the facility. Just dealing with a lot of the support communication that goes into running a rowing center, and I think larger clubs have much more paid staff to take care of those tasks. Again, just kind of the difference of the bigger boathouse, you might have a janitorial service that comes and cleans things. At a smaller boathouse, the team might gather on a Saturday after practice and clean the facility.
Yeah. So
what we're seeing is we're seeing many more layoffs at larger clubs, and the layoffs are occurring on the support staff side of things. Unfortunately, we've had to make a number of very difficult decisions at both the foundation and at the Pocock Rowing Center. Eliminated 5 part-time positions and 6, 7, I think 8 full-time positions, which is.
Has the club gotten any of the federal paycheck protection funds?
We have, and unfortunately, they've the timing wasn't quite right on some of the rules that came out with the PPP, in particular, the duration of time. So, we got the PPP, but we weren't able to be on the water, so it was it was inefficient, but it kept those people on board for an extra 2 months. But unfortunately, the model. Like Dean mentioned, future revenue is certainly projected to be down, and we simply don't have the ability to pay all the people. So,
well, let's take 5 minutes, and if anybody wants to weigh in on any of these points, or Patrick, if there's anything else that we didn't cover, let's throw it open a little bit, and I'll put the resources that you mentioned in the show notes. So.
Yeah, just to add, I guess, in a sense of positivity and the community trying to really do.
And they're worried about insurance too.
Go ahead.
You have a big delay, Katie. I think that's you. But if you'd like to put it in the chat, we'll mention it on the air.
Yeah. So I'll Yeah, I'll try again. So I think it's a real tribute to the community in general. Everybody recognizes that if they are able now, they are putting in a little bit extra. All of our assistant coaches who had been paid positions are volunteering all their time now. So we have just one, our head coach, who that's his principal, that's his only job, is getting paid, but everybody else is donating their time. They're working with insurance to see if there's some reductions we can get in insurance, since the liability is lower associated with less use of the facilities. We're working with, as Padraic mentioned, a lot of the private boat owners to see if they'll help out a little bit with use of their shells. We don't have a lot of singles to work with. So everybody's really trying to do what they can to make it work, because we recognize when we come out of this, if everybody just protects their own interests right now and, drops off for a year or so, there's not going to be a facility to come back to.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I loaned my single out. They had an appeal at Community Rowing, so, any personal boat owners, if you could loan them to the juniors programs. And I mean, I think I was telling Patrick before the show, I think it's going to be really great. All these scullers out there, all these balanced rowers. Yeah, there may be a silver lining. I don't know.
They may not come back to
the
sweep side.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. And they can't complain that they're only, port only, because that would be a problem. Sculling. Charlotte, what were you saying?
Oh, I was saying small boats make big boats go fast. So just wait for, in like 2 years, there's going to be a new standard of speed.
It's going to be wild to see, huh?
I know.
I mean,
our clubs. Go ahead.
Oh, who even imagined this in January? Like, it was just wild. Go ahead.
We have a juniors club that is Rose City with Nick Haley coaches that, and they had a whole fleet of singles, mostly the Edens with the pontoon. So we've been sharing their equipment, and they've been sharing Station Hall's equipment, and I think that we would not have been able to be so successful without their help, and also vice versa.
Yeah. And Sasha, you want to try to say what you were gonna? Said your club has an interesting perspective, being small.
Okay. Yeah, we're a fairly small club, and we actually don't have buildings. So once the state parks are allowed to open again for people to go walking and biking on the trails, we were allowed to go back rowing. Start with it was, 1 or 2 people allocated per single, kind of a lot less. Back this week we're going, and I would say probably 80% of the club is rowing currently. The ones that aren't have kind of chosen not to. They don't want to row singles. They want to row big boats.
Out of how many people is that?
We've actually been flooded with requests. I think we've got about 100.
And if you didn't hear Sasha,
we've been flooded with requests from people in other clubs in India. We've got other clubs that aren't open at all because how their boathouses are owned. We've actually had to say no to new members because we're trying to assess capacity within ourselves before we continue expanding.
Yeah, got it. Patrick, you said something about existing tensions and value differences are brought to the forefront. Is that something you could elaborate on?
Yeah, for certain. We think, we see when a crisis hits, the potential for problems you didn't know you had, or differences, again, different value systems sort of come to the forefront. And I think in particular, the limited access to single sculls right now. There are a number of families in our youth program that requested we essentially kick out the less quality athletes and provide the slower athletes less access to rowing at this point in time. So again, that's not normally an issue, but normally we can meet everyone's needs. But that was in a crisis where a separate value system kind of just came came to the forefront of a conversation. I think we also see in some local clubs, some governance issues that had perhaps been, below the surface that are brought to the forefront. So issues between like, either staff and boards, or maybe issues between a board that, again, they come to the forefront, and, people are stressed. This is not the right time to be bringing these things up, but of course it impacts them. So.
But I think the overriding thing is everybody keep in mind that we're trying to sustain the sport, and we're trying to just hang on by our teeth to keep it going. Maybe they can, maybe it will foster more collaboration and more cooperation.
For certain, yeah, it's certainly a positive outlook and an optimism. I think the party line certainly is being optimistic and celebrating what successes we do have. Obviously, celebrating collaboration or new partnerships, and
I know I've been doing a lot of indoor rowing too. When I can't get a boat, Yeah,
Charlotte. In that vein, we have had a number of people increase their cross training.
Yeah,
and a lot of them are doing it from a social perspective as well. So they're doing it, they'll go on group walks or group runs, that type of thing. So they're trying to maintain, for a lot of our masters in particular, the social aspect and the camaraderie was what really drew them to the club. And they're able to maintain some semblance of that anyway. With a lot of them, even you go up to the lake and walk around the lake or run around the lake instead of rowing around the lake. So it's nice to see that people are trying to maintain that element of what it means, how much it means to them as a group as well.
Yeah, good point. We've had a couple of virtual conferences, and then and I think some of the same stuff is going on at our club. But anyone else have a burning desire to to share something? We are kind of in a very interesting time, and Patrick, I appreciate your perspective, and what you're doing is starting clubs and running them, and like 3 different clubs. It's just got to be kind of an all-consuming, intense life. Yeah. All right, so we are going to wrap up. We have to thank our sponsors. We have the Rowing Retailers program coming up, and then we have a book called The Movement of Rowing. Blake Gourlay is sponsoring this month. It's a new book focusing on the foot and ankle zone. So, I think he kind of goes through different parts of the body and relates them to rowing. So this is a really cool book, and thank you, Blake, for us being a sponsor. We would like you to connect with Ready Row USA as we kind of make our way through this time. Let us know how you're doing and what your club is doing. Share. Let's all connect and build a community. We have a hashtag that we use called it's Ready Row USA. Just use that. All run together on social media and share the episode. And we'll we have gadgets and gear that we will do a drawing and share with you. So thank you so much. And thank you, Nancy Mack, for listening in, and Andres Carrazzo. We also would like to invite people to use our rowing club form. It'll be in the show notes, the link to this. And you can submit your club news. It doesn't, nothing is too small or too large to share. If you got a new load of surgical masks or something, just put it in there. Or if you have a virtual event that you'd like to promote, we'll put it on the podcast. We have 8,000 to 10,000 downloads a month, so we do have a pretty good audience now. And we also collect interesting gadgets and gear. That's one of my favorite topics. I'm kind of a gadget freak, so send us a photo and you can come on and talk about your favorite gadget if you like. Again, we would like to hear from you about we have a listener survey at rowing.chat, and you can fill out the survey and tell us what you would like to hear about. So thank you. Thanks for doing that, all the people that have done it so far. And the sponsors are on rowing.chat. It's one of those new URLs. It's just rowing.chat. And that will be it for us today, unless our guests have another additional comment. Charlotte, thank you. And Dean,
Yeah,
best of luck. Best of luck out there.
Thank you very much.
I love it that we have a sampling of, pretty much the corner. Well, you guys are in the West Coast, Charlotte and Padraic, and then Dean's in Missouri. And I'm in Boston. Thanks again. And we will call you back for commentary on the podcast from time to time if you're willing.
Absolutely.